This is Mr. Beck Does Your Homework. This is AP Physics Homework 2.4, Free Fall, questions number 10 and 11. It's a part 1 and 2. It states, a parachutist with a camera, both descending at a speed of 9.6 meters per second. Let me stop right there. What do I have going on is I've got a guy floating down here with his parachute, and he's got a camera. So here's his camera. And they're both going down at 9.6 meters per second. So that's going to be negative 9.6 meters per second. He releases the camera at an altitude of 69.6 meters. So that camera is going to fall down 69.6 meters. What is the magnitude of the velocity, watch out for that, of the camera just before it hits the ground? So here I've got an initial velocity of the camera is negative 9.6. I've got an acceleration of g is negative 9.8 meters per second squared. So this is meters per second. This is meters per second squared. And I've got a displacement of negative 69.6 meters by the time it hits the ground. And I'm looking for my final velocity. So I need an equation without time. And the equation I have is that my final velocity squared is my initial velocity squared plus twice my acceleration times my displacement. So my final velocity squared is going to be my initial velocity of negative 9.6 squared plus twice my negative 9.8 times my displacement of 69.6. Now, that's just math. So you will get a final velocity when you do this, and you square root it right there. So that negative is going to make that positive. This is going to be, oh, sorry, that's a negative there. So that'll make that positive. So I'm going to wind up with a positive number when I square root it. So that'll be good. So that'll give me my velocity. The next question asks, how long does it take the camera to reach the ground? Well, now I'm looking for time. So in order to get time out of this, I can pick any equation I want because now I have a final velocity. But I have an initial velocity, an acceleration, a distance, and time. So why didn't I pick the equation without a final velocity? No, I'm not going to pick that one because that'll be a quadratic equation. So I am going to use the final velocity. That's easier. I can just say that my displacement is 1/2 of my initial velocity plus my final velocity times time. So my displacement is negative 69.6 equals 1/2 of negative 9.6 plus whatever my final velocity was times my time. And when I plug this in, solve for time, I will get t equals, and that's the answer to that problem. Wait, back to problem number 10. This will give me a positive number, but I know that it really should be negative because it's falling down, so it will have a final velocity that's negative. But it does say the magnitude of the velocity, so you actually do enter in a positive number here. When you take a square root, you have a positive or a negative answer. In this one, the negative answer makes sense in terms of physics, but when they ask you for the magnitude of the velocity, you're going to enter it into UTexas as a positive.